Hi everyone, welcome back to my studio. Again, my name is Kelly Folsom, and thank you for this opportunity to be with you today and talk about painting again. Okay, so those of you, I've had a lot of questions about my materials, so I wanted to go over that with you today. I'm not sure how long this will last, so I will play it by ear as far as what all gets covered in this, but pretty simple stuff. So I've laid out my palette here for you. This is a glass palette. You can get many different kinds of glass palette. I just got a photo frame glass that came set in this kind of styrofoam stuff. I guess it's the glass that you buy like if you broke the glass in a frame or something. And then underneath that I just put the gray paper palette. For cleanup, of course I like the glass palettes because it's so easy to clean up, so just buy some razor blades to scrape up at the end of the day, or if you're lazy or totally exhausted, which is usually the case with me, I scrape it up the next day, which is a little bit more difficult. But still, I do not scrape it up the easy way. Okay, these are my colors, and I'll also, first let's start with the medium. Get a lot of questions about this. This is the medium that I use here, and it is called Old Masters Merge, Flemish Merge. The ingredients are cold pressed linseed oil, litharge, mastic, gum spirits of turpentine. So of course litharge is like boiled lead, and I believe oil as well. But anyways, so this is the medium. I absolutely love it. That's named after, old French conservator Jacques Merge, hence the name. It's what he believed a lot of the old masters to have used. Basically, it's just a megulp medium. You can buy all sorts of new replacements out there that will give you similar results. I just don't think anything compares to this, though. So yes, it is toxic. I really don't concern myself too much with that, although I'm sure that will terrify some people. Anyways, just make sure you wash up afterwards. If you're really concerned about it, you could wear gloves or work in have one of those ventilators in the room as well. Anyways, it does not bother me, although the smell bothers some people, but I feel like the smell is not that bad. More importantly, the reason why I like it is just because what it allows me to do with the paint. And you can visit their website, www.oldmastersmerge.com. There's all kinds of videos on there, and they'll explain it even further for you. But what I like about it is that it is a faster drying medium. It comes out kind of jelly-like, like this. It liquefies as you mix, as we'll see. Here, I'll do some mixing for you. And once you release the brush stroke, it holds the brush stroke. So unlike, if you were using a linseed oil or just a general oil and turpentine mix, the more oil there is, the more that kind of settles out the brush strokes. So I love it for that reason. I can get some really juicy brush strokes on the canvas and still, kind of see some of those nice bristle hair marks in the paint, which I really enjoy. And then I guess we'll go to this next instead of the paint, talking about bristle marks. My favorite brushes, I've tried all different kinds. I've jumped on the rosemary bandwagon there for a while, and while I enjoy their brushes, I just always go back to just this traditional filbert hog hair bristle brush made by Silver Grand Prix. Of course, there's other brands, that make this type of brush. And the filberts I like the best. Again, I've tried flats. Sometimes I use flats in landscape painting, but I actually really love the filbert because I feel like it's a little more versatile, and I also don't like to get a real stylistic look that I think comes about more with the flat brush. I just personally don't like that in my paintings. Okay, so these hold up really nicely. They will wear down over time, as you see, but they still hold their shape pretty well. So they almost only get better with age, which is also another thing that I like about them. This is a size 6. I try to just get a variety of sizes. Usually I use by multiples in the 2, 4, 6 range, and then maybe less in the larger ones. And yeah, so it's just a really, really great brush. Nice length as well. I also like the filberts, especially if I can get the long filberts, but not the eggberts. The eggberts are like too long for me. But the filbert length gives you a nice flex, see how that just bends really nicely. And that's, going to give you a lot of control, more versatile paint application on your surface. Versus I've tried brights, and the brights are really short and they're almost like painting with a palette knife. So I just don't like the brights for that reason. No flexibility at all. Okay. So, well, I'll just put these up as I go. Okay, the next thing, next color on my palette here is, of course, my white, my flake white. I love this. Rublev, naturalpigments.com. Just makes incredible flake white. Absolutely stunning, just pearlescent, beautiful. I've tried the number 2. I don't like the number 2 quite as much. My favorite is lead white number 1. And I also, the flake white is a little bit stiffer out of the tube, especially the number 1. Their number 2 is a little more stringy, what I would call kind of stringy. So what I like to do is mix in a little bit of Merge. Some people mix in some oil, little touch of walnut oil or linseed oil, but I just like to mix in the Merge. I like to keep things as simple as possible for myself. And as I said, this is just what I do, my palette, what works for me, and I've tried so many different things, and I always just keep coming back to this. So the difference between flake and flake white and titanium white, a lot of times people ask me about that and why I choose flake white. Number 1, just right off the top, the fact that it's lead based just gives such a luminosity that I love. It's also not as, doesn't have as much coverage generally as a titanium white. So it's, it's slightly transparent, a little more transparent, I guess would be the right way to say that. And a little bit of a warmer tone to it, which I also love. So anyway, so it's really nice to, build up the paint with it. Okay. What else? Oh, it dries really quickly, much, much quicker than titanium white. So that's great. I love that. By the next day, if I started painting one day and then the next day I go to work on it, usually even the thickest areas of impasto are dry to the touch. They've already set up enough where I can paint over it again, and I like that a lot. Okay, what else? I think that may be about it. So I like to get it to about this consistency, really similar to the same consistency as the rest of my paints. And then that way, it just pulls off really nicely with the brush. I can add more medium to it if I need to, if I need a thinner mixture from there, but I would say maybe that's about the consistency of sour cream, perhaps. Okay, and just so you can see, like, pulling it out, and it just has a little bit of that marigé. You know, the thinner you go with it, the cooler and more transparent it looks. So you can just get a wide variety of different textures, different thinness versus thickness with it, and I really like that. And I really hate paint that feels really fat and buttery. To me, a lot of the titaniums feel that way, and I just hate that. So this just feels a little bit more dense, and that could also have to do with the brand as well. Rublev and a lot of these paints I'm going to show you use very little filler, and so you get the maximum amount of pigment, just, you know, pigment with oil, and the least amount of filler possible. Okay, next color is Lead Tin Yellow. This is also made by Rublev. What can I say? I really love it. It's kind of like a Naples yellow, so it's pretty cool and opaque like the white. So if I know I want to raise the value of something, but perhaps not cool it off as much as white would, I might choose my Lead Tin Yellow. But it has a lot more coverage of the canvas, say, than yellow ochre. Okay. So absolutely love that color. It really also makes the light side of backgrounds feel really nice and airy, or I might use it a lot in a tabletop plane. Also, perhaps to soften the cadmium colors are so intense, I might use just a touch of this just to soften out one of the cadmium colors. Okay, so the next color is just yellow ochre. Okay, that's, and the way I lay this out, I feel like is, you know, pretty logical, and I've got the two earth, you know, yellows here, and then the earth red. I won't talk about that, but, you know, this one's lighter in value, closer to value to the white. So, you know, I would encourage you, however you choose to lay it out, you know, as you develop your process, you just try to figure out what ways you can lay things out that you can make it easier on yourself and lay it out the same way every single time. So if I'm going to be reaching to make something lighter, I know my brush is going to reach down in this area, and if I want to make something darker, I know my brush is going to be reaching out to here in this area. And usually I'll have like a big pile of dark mixtures, a big pile of light mixtures, and somewhere in the middle is like the middle tones. So this just makes things simpler for me, and try to keep your mixing area as big as possible. Okay, this brand is Vasari. Usually I don't buy Vasari just because I like Vasari a lot, but I was gifted this and I'm very, very grateful for the gift. But usually I just don't spend that much money on it. The things that I justify spending the money on would be like the Rublev white and my Merget. Everything else I feel like to a certain extent you can get away with a lesser quality pigment, so we'll talk about that. Okay, next color is Terra Rosa. This is just a nice strong earth red. You could also of course substitute like Venetian red. What else? Anyways, can't think of anything else right now, but there's several earth reds out there that are similar. This one's a little more orangey, brickier than say Venetian red, and this is a very, very strong color. It's equally as strong in its tinting strength as say the cadmiums. So a little bit of this goes a long way, but a gorgeous color, and not a color that I use often. It just depends on the setup that I'm working with or the landscape, so I may not even put it out that regularly. The next color is Cad Yellow Deep. As you see, this is not the same brand. This is Norma Schminke, and I feel like their paint is nice quality paint, like the consistency. Also pair the warmer yellow next to the warmer red. So usually if I'm using this red in a painting, I'll be sticking with this yellow. Versus if I'm using this red or this yellow in a painting, you know, I'll pair these two together. They seem to make a little bit more sense together, and that's something that I did learn from David LaFell that I have found out that really does work well. So it's a nice cool yellow with a nice cool red, and that tends to simplify the decision-making process a little bit. Okay, so put that away. As you can see, I need to order more. Oh no. Okay, and then the next color is Cad Yellow Lemon. You could also use Cad Yellow Light, but I really love lemon. It has a nice strong bite to it. Very, very different from this. Now sometimes I might mix these two together if this, you know, if the yellow is more of a middle yellow in the painting. So what else can I say? I use the Cads a lot for shadow colors. Ivory black with one of these cadmiums or two cadmiums, you know, these two together or these two together plus ivory black. That's sort of a go-to shadow color always. Okay, next color is Permanent Bright Red from Visara. Usually I use Cad Red Light, but again, since this was gifted, and this is, for me, very comparable to Cad Red Light, so I'm not too picky about that. This is a really beautiful red, by the way, and as you can see, you know, a little bit goes a long way. I use this a lot, but just a small touch is all you need. So this tube is going to last me a long time, I would think. And, you know, Visari, of course, is much more strongly pigmented than, say, Winsor & Newton here. So, you know, you just get more bang for your buck there, I guess would be the saying. Okay, and next color, usually this color is alizarin crimson, and I still do, because this color is very different from alizarin crimson, so if I have something that I really need alizarin crimson for, I won't put this out. But this was out from yesterday's painting, which had a really beautiful blue-violet plumbago flower in it, so I just felt like this would be a nicer violet to use. It's called Ruby Violet. Just lovely, gorgeous. As you can see, it's like a nice, beautiful burgundy, you know, color. So the alizarin crimson I have from Winsor & Newton is a little warmer, a little richer than this, not quite as purpley. This is sort of a kind of a cooler purple in comparison. Next color, ultramarine blue. Oops, got a little plastic bag stuck on there. Ultramarine blue. Beautiful. It's your warmer blue. My warmer blue in this case. I kind of actually mixed them up a little bit. Oh well. Anyways, I usually have a warm base blue, which means it's bent a little bit more to the purple side of things. It kind of looks a little bit more like a navy blue. And I could just show you the difference there. And then my next color is Prussian blue, or you could use a phthalo or something very similar colors. But Prussian dries really quickly like that. So just to show you the difference with a bit of white here. A little bit of white into that ultramarine. And we'll put a little bit of white into the Prussian. Because when they're so dark, you know, these pigments are all so dark, it's really, and they're so transparent that it's really hard to see without a bit of white into them just what their differences are. So as you can see, this is a little bit more of a turquoisey color, which makes really gorgeous greens, and it's a much stronger tinting strength than the ultramarine blue. So you know, like if you're trying to make a really highly intense green, actually I'll just show you. You know, let's say if you're going for a really intense green, you might use Cad Lemon and Prussian Blue. If you need a very, let's say maybe the dullest, black will give you the dullest green, but if you want to do a dull green, well, first I'll put in the same color, Cad Lemon and Ultramarine Blue. I kind of put too much Cad Lemon. But you can see the difference there between the two. This is much cooler, more intense, and we'll put some more yellow in that. Okay, and but if you wanted to make a really dull blue, you might use yellow ochre and ultramarine blue, and that's going to give you a really nice dull green. Okay, big difference. So there's a huge difference between greens, and of course that may be a whole different topic. You can see how kind of gray that looks in comparison to that, but there's times when this is the color you're going for. It's nice to know how to get there without having to, oh, start with this, it's so strong, now I got to add red and desaturate it and all that jazz. You'll just never get there as easily as you'll get just knowing that you can use ultramarine and yellow ochre instead. Okay, next color is burnt umber. I do have some Michael Harding paints. I was trying out Michael Harding, and I think they're excellent paints. So I'm not too picky when it comes to paint. You know, I would say, if anything, maybe the Norma Schminke. A nicer paint is good if you can afford it, but if not, well, then so be it. I painted a lot of, when I was a student, of course, a lot of paintings with pretty cheap paints, even student grade paints. So you do what you have to do. But I would suggest, if you work with the best materials you can, whatever you can afford. Okay, but Michael Harding burnt umber, and I use that a lot just to get my neutral sketching color. You can either use Prussian with it or the ultramarine. Usually I use the ultramarine, but sometimes the Prussian. And I can use that for a tone or to do my mass end. The red and the burnt umber neutralizes, or the two neutralize each other, I should say. Okay. Next is raw umber. Again, this is Vasari. I actually really love Vasari's raw umber. It's just gorgeous. You can see in comparison, sometimes you, like in Winsor Newton, you might get a raw umber and a burnt umber, and on the palette you can't really tell maybe a huge difference until, again, you put some white into it or a different color. But here you can quite easily see the difference. This is incredibly warm, and this is very cool. So I usually keep this right next to my black, because I use the ivory black and the raw umber together a lot. So it's just like a nice steely gray, you know, if you put white with it. It's just such a beautiful, soft, and you can see it's so neutral. It's almost the same color as the gray palette paper. And then if you want to cool it off even more, you can just add in a little bit of ivory black. Now I think Harding's ivory black is a little bit warmer than the usual ivory black. Generally ivory black has a strong blue tint to it, and I typically think of it as more of a desaturated blue than anything else. Okay. That is all of the paints. Okay, so let's see. And then I use Viva paper towels. I think they are the best, so absorbent. I don't use any mineral spirits in between. I don't clean in between, so I don't like to get my brush that wet because I want to put down the most amount of paint I can. So here's just an array. This one's getting pretty used. You can see it's thinning out a bit, but it's still nice and long and holds its shape. Comes to a really nice point. Even gets better once you get some more paint in there. I don't know. I've always misplacing my good palette knife. It's horrible. And I swear if I get another one, if I buy another one, I would misplace it too. Anyways, my good palette knife is a Jack Richardson palette knife, and it's not one of these little short guys. I really don't like this. The other one is much longer, but it's still diamond shaped and very flexible. The Jack Richardson ones are, I guess, made in Italy, and it's just really nice. Oh, I forgot to show you the Michael Harding ivory black. So hopefully I like this ivory black, right? Because I bought a huge tube of it. And here's the Winsor Newton Prussian blue, another large tube. of that, but I've used that quite a bit over the last year. I do try to buy the big tubes when I can. They're usually a bit better price. Okay, as far as surfaces, my preferred surface is a panel. Oh, let's put this up. My preferred surface is a panel. Well, I would love to paint on lead primed linen probably all the time, but you know, that's really expensive. And but anyways, the main point is that I prefer a as non-absorbent as the surface as I can get. So generally I do prime these. This is just an ampersand gesso board. Let's see. And of course you can get those anywhere online. This one's a 6x8. They have a little bit of tooth to them, and they are a tad bit dry. I also like to order from Interglow panels, so you can look them up online. It's sort of a mom and pop company, I think in Pennsylvania. Let's see, I also order just some cheap, like from Dick Blick, Edu-Panel. They're really inexpensive. They come with a tooth on them, and I don't like that, so I hit it with a power sander very briefly just to knock down a little bit of that tooth, and that actually makes the surface slicker, a little bit slicker, but not like that cheap slick stuff. I've painted a lot on those too, though. You can paint on those, but they can be a real pain in the butt. Okay, so if I were to tone this, I would use quite a bit of my Merge and my ultramarine blue and burnt umber. You know, you could do raw umber. The main point is just to get a somewhat neutral. You know, you can make this cooler, warmer. I generally, if I err on any side, I'm going to make it warmer. You know, so basically just do this until I have the whole thing kind of covered. You could also do this with something else, but most of the time I don't let this dry. I do this right before I paint. So that way I have a really nice layer of Merge just to paint into, and then I don't need a lot of Merge after that. I'll use some of it just in the shadows or in the background or whatnot, but once I get a little layer of it down like this, I really just don't need a whole lot more, and I don't usually use a whole lot in the lighter colors. Now if I have like some of your colors are going to dry much slower. Of course, alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue and ivory black are just kind of notorious slow dryers. Next would be, I would say, probably the cadmiums are going to dry a bit slower, versus all of your earth colors are going to dry quicker. So something like that might be just enough to get it going. Okay, and I think that's it for me today. I hope all of this information was helpful to you, and I'm looking forward to doing another video. I think the next one is going to be really focused on how to load your brush work, when to mix what kind of consistency of paint, like this thinner paint that I put down for the background. So hopefully that would be helpful to you as well, of some value and use. Thank you so much. I appreciate you giving up your time to watch this. Bye-bye.